Real estate we'll talk about now. Inventory up about 30% compared to this time last year. So lots of inventory on the market, especially in the condo market. Sam Korea, of course, joining us this morning. There's some important questions to be asked before we buy a condo, Sam. Yes. You're going to give us some tips today. And the first thing that you want to make sure that people understand is it's a different kind of purchase. It's a different kind of property.
Absolutely. There's lots to know, and most times people make the decision based on what they're seeing rather than the corporation they're buying into. So it's the first big mistake I see.
Okay. Let's get into size first. In this case, size does matter.
It does. And what's very interesting is building corporations will typically have a formula that they have for how they factor their square footage, which is often not the actual size. They'll put in outdoor space and sometimes garage space as far as the square footage that they're marketing. So what you think you're buying is not actually the actual.
What you are buying. Yeah. Okay. Condo fees are an interesting one, especially in light of some of the stories that we've seen in recent years on the West Coast and even in Calgary around some of the big work that's having to be done on condos after people buy them.
Absolutely. You never make your decision based on what that fee is at that time, because typically what happens is new construction is not often basing what that corporation will need long-term to sustain, so there's no cash calls down the road. So make sure you keep that in consideration. Typically they do go up in the first year or two when the corporation is formed.
So in some ways, if a condo fee is quite low, that should raise maybe a bit of an alarm bell?
It's definitely a red flag. And certainly the older condos will have a higher condo fee, typically for a reason. Right. There's some history there. And the newer ones, I certainly would keep that in mind before you buy.
Okay. Let's talk about amenities. And this, of course, can sometimes impact what we do pay in terms of fees. And should it?
Well, definitely. I mean, some buildings have a lot more to offer. You know, when you have a full-time concierge and swimming pools and lots of outdoor space, this is an indoor wine cellar from the Princeton.
Right. I think this is one of the first properties that we profiled together. That's a beautiful facility.
This facility is first class, so certainly the condo fees are going to reflect it. When you have a tasting room and wine cellar, a concierge, obviously not all the buildings have a concierge. Some buildings in the past have had concierge and had to cancel them. Indoor amenities like gyms, obviously is something that raises the fees in the building. Indoor swimming pools, some even have media rooms and theaters. Certainly that raises the maintenance fees as well too. Pools is a big one. I think moving forward, you're probably not going to see a lot of pools in some of these buildings because that is the #1 thing that raises fees. And typically when people get into these older buildings, that's the first thing that some of the residents actually take away, which is a bit of a shame.
So you want to make sure if there are amenities there and you're paying for them, you're going to use them.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. Let's talk about bylaws and understanding those. That's also another critical step with buying a condo.
It's a big one. I've had families actually buy into a corporation knowing there was an age restriction and having to move simply because, you know, they had a new family member. Right. Sometimes buildings will say children must be 18 or older, and so that's a big reason to look at that age restriction. So, and there's a lot of buildings that are age restrictive. So know the bylaws, know the restrictions. A big one is pets. Right. You have to have pet approval. So there is a formula that the pets have to actually be approved in the building. Not all buildings allow pets.
So that's some fine print you definitely don't want to skim over. And you keep talking about it as a corporation, and with any corporation there's of course a board of directors. Something else to maybe get involved in, or at least be aware of who's in charge.
You should be on the board. At the very minimum, you should be going to the board meetings to kind of voice your opinion. But being on the board is really a good way to know exactly what you're getting into. Some of the condos that are out there that are self-managed are sometimes a problem when you go to sell, because it's a nice arrangement between owners, but when you go to buy, they typically don't have all the minutes of the meetings, the financials, the budget, the bylaws available. Right. So self-managed ones are something that you don't typically get all the information.
Right, you want to be aware of it.
Being on the board is very important. Get involved.
Great advice if you are going ahead to buy a condo. Some great tips. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's RE/MAX's Sam Korea. For more information, head to samkorea.ca.
Hospital Home Lottery is already over 90% sold.